Sedbergh School is the best rugby school in England. What is it about Sedbergh? Why is it so good? It's in the middle of nowhere, I think.
Yeah, you've got to toughen up. It's freezing there. But I think the thing for me was just, they kind of, the core skills of the whole school. Like I remember going there on my first ever training day, and there's like year nines passing like 25 meters, spin passing 25 meters, and I couldn't even do that off my left hand at the time.
Mate, Cameron, we'll crack into it, mate. It's been a long time since I remember seeing you knocking about the Gloucester training ground. I can't even think how old you were back then. I thought you were in nappies, but you might have been slightly older.
So we left Gloucester when I was 12. So it was all literally any time before that, really, from 7 to 12, really. So
yeah,
young, very young.
You were definitely out of nappies, that's for sure.
Well, I hope so. I should hope so.
Yeah, well, let's get a little bit into about your backstory as well. And a lot of people who will listen to this, as they base a lot of stuff on accents. As you know, I played for Scotland for many years, and I sit here with a North Hebridean, Coventryarian accent, so very English. And a lot of people judge someone's nationality on that. So you grew up the bulk of your life in England because your dad, who is a true Scotsman, Sir Brian Redpath, and my coach at Gloucester, then obviously went to Sale. How has that been as a young kid for you, growing up in that kind of rugby circles in England?
Pretty cool to be honest. I think I've literally I've been involved in rugby since I was pretty much born, just because of dad. Obviously, I was born in France because he was over there playing for Narbonne at the time. So I actually had the French, England, and Scottish all kind of the options. If obviously
all fighting for you, they're all fighting for you.
They weren't, but if they were, then I could have picked all three if I had the choice. But so then obviously moved to Manchester. Dad played at Sale, so I grew up there watching him. I went to the 2003 World Cup, watched him in Australia, which I don't really remember. I remember the odd thing here and there, and there's a few photos of me in the Scotland kit, which is quite cool. Then, when I was, I think it was 7, moved to Cheltenham for 7 years. And, that was when I kind of, most of my rugby memories kind of started, playing at Cheltenham Tigers, which was pretty cool. And obviously coming in and watching the Gloucester boys train, I used to do that anytime I could, really. And that was always, a highlight of my Easter holidays or Christmas holidays or whatever. I used to love it. Then moved to Sale with dad, back up to Manchester, and that's probably why I've got this Manc accent, which is not the nicest, but it's there.
It's hybrid.
Yeah, it's a posh Manc, I think I'd say. Obviously watched a lot of his training at Sale still when I was there, and saw the likes of Sedbergh and people like that going through Sale. So and then obviously started playing a little bit more serious. I kind of liked football more when I was at Gloucester. I played a lot of rugby, but I just liked any sport, and I ended up being quite lucky even playing like at West Brom Academy when I was in Cheltenham. And then when I moved to Manchester, I didn't play for a club. I played for school, and my rugby started a bit more serious there. I was at Cheshire, then Sale, and I had to give up football then. And then went to a boarding school in Sedbergh for sixth form. And that's properly where my rugby kind of started being a bit more serious, just because that's when 17, 18 really is when you kind of have to try and be a bit more serious about it. And then from then on, it's been Sale and then obviously now at Bath, which I'm loving. So yeah, I've been in England pretty much since 1 year old, but yeah, I'm technically Scottish and I was born in France. So.
Well, mate, we'll talk about that. I know you're Scottish. You cut you open, mate. You're going to be blue. Your dad is a Scotland legend. Let's talk about a couple of things. Yeah, that's what I say. So I know I'm Scottish because I can't understand my dad or my granddad. They're Glaswegians. A couple of things you spoke about there was Sedbergh. I had a really nice interview with Harry Randall, who went to Hartpury, and we saw the names that were published this week of the quality of players that have come from Hartpury College / university. But Sedbergh's another one, right? You look at some of the players that have played there, and you speak to a lot of people say that Sedbergh School, Sedbergh School or Sedbergh College?
Sedbergh School, yeah.
Sedbergh School is the best rugby school in England. What is it about Sedbergh? Why is it so good? It's in the middle of nowhere, I think.
Yeah, you've got to toughen up. It's freezing there. But I think the thing for me was just, they kind of, the core skills of the whole school. Like I remember going there on my first ever training day, and there's like year nines passing like 25 meters, spin passing 25 meters, and I couldn't even do it off my left hand at the time, let alone my right, and they were doing it off both, and it was just quite cool. Like that, it's just there's no football, there's no anything other than just rugby really for boys anyway. So I think because it's such a small like village, the town kind of all kind of involves around the school, and it's just the culture around rugby that they're so rugby driven. And for me, I just love the feel of every Saturday you go and play on the main first team pitch, and the whole village would pretty much be going and watching. So you'd get like a couple hundred people watching your games, and the whole school would come, and just the whole environment and the feel of it. It's pretty fun, and you enjoy it really. And then obviously because you're playing with people who are also in the same kind of mindset and frame of everything the same as you end up just really, really enjoying it. And I've said it from day one. When I don't enjoy my rugby, I don't play well. And I think that was the thing about Sale. When I left there, I wasn't really enjoying it because I'd been injured. I wasn't playing well myself, and that's why I needed a fresh start at Bath, I think. And that was where I fully started to proper enjoy my rugby. Obviously, I was at Kingsmac before that, and I enjoyed it there. But as you take it more serious, you've still got to enjoy it. And that's the main thing, that the coaches are really good, that they understand the level of enjoyment and understand that you've got to take it serious, but you're still a kid at the end of the day. So yeah, I think that's the massive thing, just enjoyment, and the core skills of some of the boys there are a joke.
Yeah, there were some big names when there. Will Greenwood. I was trying to dig out some more. Will Carlin, of course. Yeah.
And then you've got Tom Francis from Wales. Who else is there? There's loads. James Simpson-Daniel from Gloucester, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
Brothers. You've got a lot of boys who are like similar age to me who have come through. Like Tom Curtis, Josh Hodge, Will Hayden-Wood, Rob Farrer up at Newcastle. There's loads of people. James Botham from Wales, Sam Moore who's at Cardiff, Ruben Birch who's just been at Sale, Bevan Rod who's at Sale. Who else is there? There's loads of boys already. Every year they seem to get a couple lads signing.
No, it's class. I wanted to touch a little bit on your football background, the West Brom Academy stuff. Your dad mentioned that, and he said to ask you about that. It's a really interesting kind of path where you have to choose, rugby or football. I think like naturally something will come to the fore. People would say go down the football route because of the money in there. Alex Lazowski, however you want to pronounce it, who I was at Saracens with, a really good lad. Amazing footballer. We used to play a bit of football at Sarries. I scored a couple of absolute belters, to be fair. But him, there's Danny Kerr as well. Is there any other names that you can think that could have made it in football?
Cipriani, yeah.
Danny Cipriani, of course, yeah. So it almost seems like you need to have a certain kind of skill set to have the crossover, because obviously it's involving your feet. Are you a good kicker on the pitch as well then?
Rugby-wise, I've never really pushed myself enough to try it. I think I've always left it at Sedbergh with Josh Hodge and Tom Curtis, who are really good goal kickers and kicking in general. So I just left them to do it. And it's the same at Sale with AJ McGinty, Rob Dupree. I never really got in the mix of really trying. At Bath, I've got Reece, Josh and Ben Spencer who, do all of that kicking there. So I've never really tried it. But I can do it. And, I have, it's there. I've never really pushed it enough to probably be as good as I could be, but it's always there, and I love to try and get that into my books at some point.
Try and get it in, mate, for when you go to France when you're 40. Your dad will tell you that, because if you can kick, mate, they'll take you. Just a little bit on Bath. How are things there? It's been a crazy week. I don't know how much you can tell us, but the stuff around the COVID, false positives and the issues that they've had. A crazy week. I know there's no games, obviously, but how has it been for the players?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a weird one. Obviously, getting told that the whole squad had to isolate on Tuesday just to, find out all the contact tracing and stuff. And the physios and all the the medical staff at Bath they're really good, and they're on top of it really good. So we all got told who had to isolate, who didn't, Tuesday night, and then Wednesday night we got told another Zoom call about 9 o'clock at night where Hoops was like, "This is urgent. We need you back." And he told us obviously that all the tests had been done wrong or something. I'm not too sure how it all worked out, but yeah, it was just a bit of a weird one, because everyone at the club seems to be pretty sensible about it. You know, we keep our distance. We don't socialise outside of our little, you know, bubble at the club. And yeah, we were a bit shocked at how we could get 19 tests. And obviously it all came back that it wasn't. It was just the one. So yeah, it was a bit hectic, but I think it's on the rise. You know, we're going to be sorted now. We had another test today just to 100% clear up that we're good. But hopefully it's all good, and you know this week can go ahead, and the Bristol game hopefully won't be cancelled anymore. But I think it was likely to get cancelled if we had obviously 19 boys tested positive because of the contact tracing, and the risk behind it is just massive. So hopefully these tests come back and we can all crack on with the week.
Yeah, hopefully. It must be ridiculous trying to migrate and organise everything, and obviously the postponement of games, but also because the Six Nations is on the horizon. We can talk a little bit about that. You go from the carnage that's happening at Bath. I don't know whether they overlapped with the news of you coming up to Scotland to play. I know that's probably been spoken about over the last kind of few weeks, I'm sure, internally. But how has that been? The news has come out that you've chosen to play for Scotland. We'll maybe talk a little bit about before that, because you've come through the England age group. Eddie Jones picked you in the squad. So how did them conversations with Gregor, who we know is very good mates with your dad, how has that come to accelerate to the fact that we find you now being picked in the Scotland squad for the Six Nations?
So obviously the COVID stuff around Bath and Scotland, I was quite lucky. I didn't actually have to self-isolate. I wasn't, you know, as a back, you don't have to really get into too many contacts in training, so you can avoid it pretty well. So I was lucky. So I was all good for going up to camp. But it all came across really. So obviously, you know, I'm at Bath now and I'm loving rugby again. And, you know, I'm injury free for a while, which is good. And that helps. And yeah, just it all came around. I've spoken to Gregor a couple of times over the past few years. And he's always been pretty good and respectful about my decision to not commit. I always say to him, I want to kind of earn my place and play well before I get picked by anyone, and he's always been really good about that. And you know, I want to build my own legacy instead of, you know, in my dad's shadow. Obviously it's nice to have it there, and it's, you know, I'm really obviously grateful to have a dad who has played 60 games for Scotland, but I wanted to earn it, as I said. So I've always said that to Gregor, and I've stood by that the whole time. I didn't want to rush into a decision, and you know, I've been lucky enough to be involved with the England camps and things in the past. But for me, it's never been about Scotland, England. It's always been about where will I develop and where will I enjoy my rugby. Because I learned playing at Sale, and this is not slagging anyone off at Sale. They treated me really well, and they did everything they could to you know, right with me. I got injured twice with my knee, and both times quite big injuries with it. And you know, you'll probably know better than anyone, because obviously you've been involved in the professional game. When you're injured a lot and not really performing as well as you want, you don't really enjoy it. And being 18, going from a South Africa England tour to injured, and you know, it obviously goes from 0 to 100 pretty quick, or 100 to 0 pretty quick. So being injured, it just wasn't right for me. So I wanted to leave and get a fresh start. I feel like I've got that at Bath, enjoying it. I just wanted to establish myself as a player there before I made any decisions internationally. Now I feel like I've done that, and you know, I'm in the leadership group at Bath, and I feel like I'm starting to show people what I can do. Obviously, you've still got a lot more to give, but I'm feeling like I'm starting to grow a little bit more. I think it's just the right time to play international rugby, or try and play international rugby. If I train well, hopefully I'll get my first cap. But it's the right time, and I didn't feel like autumn international was the right time, because I still wasn't, you know, I wasn't necessarily playing every week. I was on the bench some weeks, I was starting some weeks. So yeah, for me, it's just more about playing international rugby at the right time. You know, it's never been a battle of Scotland, England. That's just been one of the lucky things I've had. I've had both countries at different times being interested. And for me, I just wanted to play international rugby at the right time, and I feel that's right now with Scotland. And you know, the likes of Finn Russell and Hoggy, I've played against Hoggy a couple of times this season and last, and you know, they're both very talented players. So for me, it felt right. And as I said, there's a big emotional side to it for my family. Obviously, I telling my grandparents and stuff that I'm going to go down the Scotland route. It was nice to hear, actually. I didn't. They've always been supportive, no matter who I go with, but to hear them, you know, holding back, oh yeah, Cam, we would have been happy, you both sides, but deep down, you know, they're buzzing inside, and a lot of like family friends from up in Scotland have messaged me saying they're buzzing for me. So, you know, it just felt right. And for me, I want to play international rugby. So it is, you know, at the right time, I think.
No, I think it is, mate. And watching your career from afar, and obviously seeing the injuries and stuff that you picked up at Sale at such a young age. But I think Gregor mentioned it, and obviously what he says, and he knows the game a lot better than me, but both sides of the ball defensively and attacking, and the fact that you've managed to string a load of games together in a really good Bath team, and the fact as well, I look at the international setup for Scotland. There's a couple of positions we are thinning. You know, I've mentioned the number 8 position before, but I think the centre as well. Sam Johnson's been brilliant. Duncan Taylor is, for me, a world-class player. Matt Scott's playing well at Leicester. But it just seems with the injuries and the strength and depth we've not quite had. Just for the listeners and the viewers on here as well, Cam, what's your style of game? I know what it is, but like, what kind of a player do you see you? Are you a Route 1 China? I know you're not. You've got a lot more to your game than that. But what do you think you can bring to an international rugby for Scotland with your skill set that you've got?
I'd like to say that I'm a ball playing 12 who can get a bit, you know, gritty and work hard sometimes. I don't shy away from a jackal. I quite enjoy that side of it. Probably not great for the shoulders and as a centre, but I'll end up being like a back rower in a couple of years, I think. But no, I think for me, I quite like being a ball player and, you know, doing the fancy stuff over the gritty stuff, but it's there as well. So I think to be a world-class centre, you've got to have a bit of everything. And if I can try and bring, you know, the gritty hard works and, you know, hard carrying, straight line carrying into my ball playing as well, then hopefully that'll work and it will hopefully bounce off the likes of Finn and Hoggy and people like that. And then, you know, I'll learn a lot from them and hopefully I can bring a bit of that flair that you see the likes of Finn doing, like the nutmegs and in the middle of a game, like that's pretty cool. So hopefully if I can play alongside of that and try and do anything along those lines, then that'll be pretty cool. But for me, ball playing 12 with a bit of a you know, a tough edge in a sense. Yeah,
no, lovely. Well, mate, I for one will be hoping that you do get capped. It's going to be very strange. Obviously, you've been to Murrayfield. You've seen the Six Nations grounds when there's fans there. There's nothing better. It's the moment you feel alive, and that's obviously not going to be there. But hopefully, you'll be out on the pitch for Scotland, mate, and it's fully deserved. And as I say, with a name like Redpath, I couldn't imagine you playing for England. In saying that, as well, you look at some of the lads that have come through the England setup that have decided not to play for England, and you know the game's very professional now, and there'll be reasons why players don't necessarily carry on to play for England. I was the same. I played England 19s, England 21s, and made the move up, and it was the best decision I ever made. I got to play in 2 World Cups, you know, 9 or 10 Six Nations Championships. I now live in Scotland. But you look at Nick Tompkins at Saracens, came through the England setup, now playing for Wales, arguably an opportunity to play for the Lions. Ross Moriarty as well. So we're seeing more and more players do that. I think just lastly, when you see these players do that, and you're at Bath, you're at a Premiership club, and you know the EQP talk around that, do you feel a little bit of pressure at Bath now? The fact that you've cemented your place as 12, you're going to be coming up for the Six Nations. They're probably thinking they're going to have someone like you around the Six Nations unless you're away with England, which they will then be financially compensated for. How has Bath been around your decision?
Really good. You know, I spoke to the right people, I think, and you know, my family, my friends, Hoops and Hats at the club, and my agent, and you know, all the people who I kind of trusted and wanted their opinions on. I spoke to them, and as I said, Bath were really good. Hoops and Hats both, you know, both backed me. They said to me that they want me here for the long run, and you know, I think that's all I really needed to hear. I didn't want to hear that, oh, that's going to affect your position at Bath, because it shouldn't. And I think if I'm playing well, then my position at Bath should be there, is from what they're saying. So hopefully I can go to the Six Nations, hopefully get a couple of games under my belt and come back and play well for Bath. And you know, nothing changes for me. Obviously the financial side for them might change, but hopefully, you know, from what they're saying, I'm still going to be treated the same, and I'm sure that will happen if I'm playing well.
Well, that's class. That shows the measure of the club if they stick to their words. So fingers crossed and you get the best of both worlds. Cameron, really appreciate that, mate. It's been a long time, and fingers crossed that you get an opportunity.
Thank you, mate. Cheers. All the best.